show.
Welcome to episode 48 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener, we would really appreciate it, especially if you like the podcast, to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoy the content, it would be a big time help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. The Toronto Maple Leafs just had a roller coaster of a week as they continue their road trip. They went 2-1 over the past 3 games. We are going to get into the week that was and give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that went down with this team, including our take on a couple other teams, specifically the Edmonton Oilers and Evander Kane. So I promise you want to stay tuned for that. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Always good. Anthony Bruno, happy to be recording a pod during NFL playoff weekend. Episode 48. Ready for it? It's a big one. Historical number in Maple Leafs history. Episode 48. Shout out goes to Calle Rosen, who came over from the Swedish Elite League, was nice enough to sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if people remember correctly, he signed with Andreas Borgman. So Leafs fans' heads exploded when the Toronto Maple Leafs signed 2 Swedish defensemen in one summer. I'm not sure how many total games each of them played with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it wasn't very many. And Rosen actually ended up being in the Kadri trade. He went over to Colorado with Nas. But yeah, kind of disappointing outcome from those two. But I was kind of like Rosen. He skated well. He moved the puck well. Like, I did think he would be something. I really did. Like, nothing spectacular, but I thought he'd find a place in the NHL. And even still, he's still like in the minors, bouncing around. He stayed put. He never went back to Sweden. But 48, Calle Rosen, the number in Leafs lore.
I think Leaf fans were convinced that at least one of those Swedish defensemen was going to turn into Nick Lidstrom.
100%.
Like Leaf fans are, they're that's where their brain always goes. I mean, obviously we're 2 Leaf fans, so we know this. You just thought that there was a glimmer of hope one would turn into a Hall of Famer, but clearly it didn't work out with either of those 2 guys.
No.
All right, Lepore, let's get straight into the podcast here.
All right.
Let's talk some Leafs. So we'll go over the week that was real quick. So it started out on Tuesday on the road in Vegas against the Golden Knights. The Leafs got out to a 3-1 lead, blew that 3-1 lead, but then ended up winning 4-3 in a shootout. And this had happened right after blowing a lead to Colorado in the previous week. So the Leafs got outshot by Vegas 34-18 and 83-45 in total against Vegas and Colorado, but still picked up 3 of a possible 4 points. So despite getting outshot like crazy, the Leafs somehow still managed to pick up 3 points, which is pretty insane. But then Lepore, they strolled into Arizona the following night in what seemed like a cupcake game against, honestly, one of the worst hockey teams I think we've seen in the last 10 years. That Arizona
100%.
Coyotes team is egregious.
Yeah.
The Leafs fired 46 shots on goal and managed to lose 2-1. So that was very Leaf-like. But then the Leafs closed out the week on Saturday night in St. Louis against the Blues. It was a roller coaster of a game. Goals left, right, and center. Once again, the Leafs get out to a 3-1 lead after the first period. They blow the 3-1 lead, but they managed to come back and win 6-5, finishing the week 2-1. So Lepore, we'll track back to that Vegas game.
Yeah.
Give me your take on what you saw from this Leaf team.
It was a crazy week for Leafs fans. 3 games, 3 very different games. Yeah, the game against Vegas where, minus the first period, the Leafs played like absolute shit, but were able to get 2 points, as you mentioned. Then against Arizona, like I'm not going to say, oh, we played amazing because we were playing Arizona, but the Leafs desperately outshot Arizona and lost. And then they got into a track meet with a team that doesn't normally get into track meets, that being the St. Louis Blues. And the underlying numbers for the Leafs were pretty good in that game, but I just didn't think they played well. Like any game, you allow 5 goals. I'm not going to say you played well, but they squeaked out a win. We'll start with the Vegas game, the first game of the week. Willie scored it was like a minute in, eh? He got that pass from Riley, breakaway, nice move. William Nylander, who will not be going to the NHL All-Star game, who are all very...
What a shame.
What a joke. Anyways, maybe we'll get to that later if we have time. Colasar tied it up for Vegas on the power play with 7 minutes left in the period. Then early in the second, I think this was like an underrated save. There was a play where the Vegas player went around the net and it looked like he was going to try a wraparound. But it was a great play. Like he had the vision to dish it off to Marchessault in front, and Campbell got like the outside of his blocker on it. Like what a save! Like what an absolute save! And like I think even the commentators at first didn't quite know what happened, and then they saw the replay and they were pretty blown away. About midway through the period, Bunting fed it was a sweet pass over to Matthews to make it 2-1. As I mentioned, like the Leafs didn't play well in this game. That was their first shot in 11 minutes. And then, like I said, it put them up 2-1. Mikheyev banged one in shortly after, went back off the boards to make it 3-1. So the Leafs have a 2-goal lead going into the third period in Las Vegas. Carlson scores on the power play. He scored as a power play expired. The Leafs killed it off in just seconds after it finished. He shot it home. This was kind of like the next moment, big moment in the game. They really turned it around. So the Leafs were killing a penalty, and Kasha forced a turnover in the neutral zone and went in on a breakaway. He was stopped. And then later in the play, the Leafs were called for a too many men call to give Vegas a 5-on-3, which they scored on. Pietrangelo scored to tie the game. So it's one of those things like that breakaway led to the too many men, which led to the 5-on-3, which led to the goal. Hockey, it's a weird sport. Game finished 3-3. It was actually like a pretty uneventful overtime. You don't say that very often, especially with teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Vegas Golden Knights, but it wasn't really the most exciting of overtimes. In the shootout, Willie Nylander scores the only goal, and the Leafs leave Las Vegas. Say that 10 times fast. With 2 points. As you mentioned, shots were 34-18 in favor of the Knights, and Money Puck had Vegas winning this game 60% of the time based on the underlying numbers. So not the greatest showing from our boys, but you got to be good to be lucky, or lucky to be good, as they say. And the Leafs this night got a little lucky and left with the W.
This team can use some luck because honestly, man, I feel like I say this every year, but there's been so many moments, especially in recent memory, but even going back, you can go back as far as you want, quite frankly, with this team. It just seems that this team is never on the right side of luck. And it was good to see for once, even going back to that Colorado game, they get absolutely dominated on the shot count. The same thing happens in this Vegas game. Now, it's not like Vegas took it to the Leafs and like completely dominated the entire game, but
yeah, the Leafs had a 2-goal lead going into the third.
Exactly. But it's a game based on the shots and the possession that the Leafs shouldn't have won, but they found a way to get it done in the shootout. And like I said, they got 3 out of a possible 4 points against 2 of the best teams in the National Hockey League. So I think that's really all that matters, because there's going to be moments throughout the season where you just don't have your A game. And you know what? We talk about the Leafs always outshooting, outpossessing their opponent. Vegas is a team, specifically in the West, that does that to 90% of their opponents, right?
Right.
So you had 2 teams that kind of play that similar, always attacking all 4 lines, get them involved offensively, engage the defensemen, right? Vegas kind of plays a similar style. They got the better of the Leafs in that area, but the Leafs obviously got the better of them on the scoreboard. So I'm just happy that the Leafs were able to pull out a win in the shootout.
How much coaching do you think goes into game by game? Especially, I've always thought when you're playing a good team on the road, I'm not going to say Keefe goes in strategically planning for overtime, or coaches do that, but as a fan anyway, I'm always pretty happy getting to overtime, like especially on the road. Give yourself a shot. You get the 1 point, and you give yourself a shot in a coin flip to get 2 points. And against teams like Vegas, Colorado, St. Louis, you'll take that. You'll take the coin flip to get 2 points and put in the bank 1 point every time. So I wonder on the road as opposed to home, the opponent, how much comes into play with your strategy, how aggressive you are, pushing 2 points in regulation versus just making sure you get 1 point. I mean, I guess we'll never really know because no coach would ever admit it. They just say they go for 2 points every time, every night, even if that's complete bullshit. But I mean, interesting.
No, I think you bring up a good point, Lepore, because even though the Leafs were outshot 83-45 over those 2 games against Colorado and Vegas, one thing I noticed, Sheldon Keefe did not rip into this team in his post-game press conferences. He did not seem pissed off. He wasn't throwing anybody under the bus, saying that the team played like crap. He was like, you know what? Like, we played 2 really good teams. We got our points. We got into overtime in both games. We didn't play our best game, but it's not the end of the world here. So It was nice to see Sheldon Keefe not panic or anything like that. There've been times throughout the season, specifically at the beginning of the season, where, there was some just crazy shit going on and dudes weren't really getting thrown under the bus. Like, I don't want to say it, kind of like what was happening in Edmonton with Dave Tippett and Mikko Koskinen, like nothing to that
extent rub it in,
happened
Bruno?
with Sheldon Keefe and any of the players. But, there were some moments early in the season where guys, if you read between the lines, were sort of getting called out and there was a sense of urgency and it almost felt like panic was setting in. But no, it was like the Leafs kind of just didn't really care that they got outshot like that. They were just happy that they got the points. So That was nice to see. And Lepore, thinking about this Vegas team, they got off to a slow start this season, kind of like Colorado as well. And you're thinking, what's going on with these 2 teams? They're supposed to be the 2 best teams in the West. And now you look at the standings. Colorado and Vegas are basically the 2 best teams in the West. And this Vegas team is going to get Jack Eichel soon. And he should be ready come playoff time. Is Vegas the best team in the Western Conference with Jack Eichel?
The best team in the Western Conference. That's a good one, Bruno. I know what everyone's thinking already. Their brains immediately going to the Colorado Avalanche. But a 7-game series, the Vegas Knights with Jack Eichel, it's close. I mean, I probably would still pick Colorado, but think how good this Vegas Knights team is and how balanced they are. And they play a beautiful style of hockey, always dominate their opponent. And you just add a $10 million true number 1 center who's about a point a game for his career. That's crazy. Like, that's a total difference maker. We had a discussion last year on the show, but I can't, having fun. Like, how many teams could you add McDavid to? And like, how many of those teams would immediately become contenders? Vegas is a really good team, and Eichel's not McDavid, but just inserting Jack Eichel, I think makes a huge difference. And I wouldn't put it past them. Hell, I'll say it. I don't think anyone would be that surprised if Vegas won the Stanley Cup. I really feel that way. And it's kind of funny how early on, I don't know how you felt, Bruno, kind of like on the topic of the Vegas Knights, that first year of the Knights when they made the Stanley Cup final and they lost to the Capitals. I was rooting for the Capitals so hard. So I was begging the entire playoffs for Vegas to lose. I don't think
anyone wanted Vegas to win.
I just think it would have been so embarrassing for the league. I mean, maybe embarrassing is the wrong word, but just so lame. Like, can you imagine a team having their first season in the NFL and winning the Super Bowl?
It's insane. It would have been a huge slap in the face. You know what? It already was a huge slap in the face to all the GMs and front offices around the league for allowing Vegas to assemble the team that they did. But if they had actually finished the job and won the Stanley Cup, people would have been rattled beyond belief across the National Hockey League and fans as well. Right. I think it's like, I think everyone was rooting against Vegas.
Yeah.
Back in their first season.
You know, what's funny about it is that, and it's like the whole like Vegas topic. What I find so interesting and I'd love to talk to the GMs about this, the coaches about this. When that format for the expansion draft was made, like we look back at it now, or we look at it now, what happened to Seattle, and we see opportunity because you're getting a decent player from every team. So we look at it and we're like, yeah, you can put together a nice roster. But I don't remember anyone saying that when it was first announced as the format when Vegas came into the league. I don't remember anyone saying, no, this Vegas team can be really good if things go their way. Everyone just, oh, it's an expansion draft. They'll be a bad team. And then what's even more interesting to me is that once that team was put together, no one raised their hand and said, guys, this is a decent team. Like Vegas did a good job putting together a roster. And then even when they started winning games, remember, it was kind of awkward. Like no one really believed in them.
Yeah, they're like a 50-win team, and everyone's like, they're still not that good.
Yeah,
and
but
then
it was
they win
like
the first round and the second round, and then they get to the cup final, and you're thinking, holy shit,
oh my,
they might actually do it.
Yeah, even throughout the season, like 10 games in, 20 games in, you're kind of waiting for a collapse. It's like, again, it's an expansion team. You're just waiting for that reality to sink in, and it never did. And like to me, it's so amazing that nobody noticed. So like, does it just show that hockey is just the weirdest sport in the world? Or I say we, like collectively, the fans, the media, the management, the coaching staffs, they don't know what they're doing.
Like, I think it's more of the former, just that hockey's just the wackiest sport. I mean, at the end of the day, when you think about this sport, you're chasing a rubber puck that's bouncing around the ice, and you have 10 guys skating around. Pucks are bouncing off guys' legs, off guys' asses, off the boards, off the glass. Like there's so many just random things that could happen during a hockey game. But saying all that, it also does show that I think there's a lot of front offices around the league that, quite frankly, Lepore, just aren't very smart. I mean, we could go down the list and talk about all the bad front offices and all the bad decisions that, certain GMs have made over the last little while. But you can count on maybe one hand 5 front offices / general managers who are genuinely very talented at what they do and rarely make mistakes and manage the salary cap well. And I think collectively as a league, everyone just sort of botched that Vegas expansion draft, and it set the table for what they are today. But to be fair to Vegas, Lepore, they signed Pietrangelo, signed Mark Stone, right? So they brought in other guys.
They traded for Eichel now.
Traded for Jack Eichel. So they've made good decisions post expansion draft, obviously. But yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of both. But going quickly back to the Jack Eichel thing, I said at the beginning of the season, and some people thought I was crazy. I don't know if I said it specifically on this show, but I did make a video about this on social media. I called the Vegas Golden Knights the most overrated team in the NHL.
Really? I don't remember that.
Because as good as they are, this team still didn't have a number one centerman. And you saw it in the playoffs against Montreal. I could not believe that team couldn't score. Everyone made fun of the Leafs for not being able to score when it mattered. The Leafs outscored Montreal. I believe it was 18-14 over that 7-game series. Vegas, Lepore, was a train wreck. Mark Stone did not score a goal. I don't even think Mark Stone had a point.
Yeah, he didn't have a good playoffs
in that series against Montreal. I remember there was a stat going around that they collectively, I think, got like 4 goals from their forwards. It was either 4, 5, or 6 goals from their forwards in that series against Montreal. Because if you remember, Pietrangelo had a big series. A couple other of their other D-men played well. Alec Martinez. But anyway, that's a team that was just desperately lacking a number one centerman. And getting Jack Eichel, I think, unlocks a lot for this hockey team. I don't want to go and say that they're better than Colorado, because I agree with you. I still think Colorado's the best team in the West. But man, I am very excited to see how this team looks with Jack Eichel, because I'm a huge Jack Eichel guy. When this guy's healthy and he's at his best, I believe he's a top 10 player in the world.
Yeah, me too.
So this is going to be a very, very scary team. And it's all going to depend on how quickly Jack Eichel can get back to full health, right?
Yeah.
It might take him a couple months.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think he's just going to step on the ice night one and he's going to look like Jack Eichel from like 3 years ago.
Yeah. And they don't care to rush him either. Like how that division's going, they don't care.
Yeah.
He'll just come in whenever he's ready, or more than ready for that matter. It's just too with Eichel. I don't know how you feel about this. When big players get traded, sometimes it feels kind of weird, even just like seeing them in that jersey on a new roster. I just see Eichel fitting in perfectly. That I have this feeling that the first game I watch with the Knights with Jack Eichel is just going to feel natural. And I don't know if it's a personality thing, if it's a style thing, but I think it's a great fit. I really do. And I'll say this, with the current Vegas lineup, would you be, I mean, shocked is a strong word, but if this group collectively within the next few years didn't win a cup or at least make another final?
I think for sure with this group that they have right now, they should be able to get back to a conference final.
Yeah, no question.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, man, because we've seen some good teams in recent memory. I mean, obviously the Leafs, they can't get over the hump to save their lives, but there's been some good teams, even going back just in, looking at the salary cap era, that have been really good, but can't get past the first round, can't get past the second round, right? Because you're facing really good teams, especially under this format. Like, think about the Atlantic Division this year. In the first round, it's going to be either Leafs Lightning, Leafs Panthers, Panthers Lightning. Like, that's a nightmare matchup. Whoever finishes 2-3 in the Atlantic is screwed.
The Bruins have won like 8 of 9 now too. Like, they're firing up the standings.
And now the Bruins are on fire. So when you think about it from that perspective, no, I wouldn't be surprised if this Vegas team, as good as they are, if they get clipped in the first round, if they get clipped in the second round. It's tough, man.
You think Edmonton's going to beat them, right?
Oh, God. Don't even get me started.
I couldn't help
Edmonton.
myself, everyone.
You got to save that for a little bit later in the show. That team is in a free fall right now. Oh my God. I can't wait to talk about that later in the show. It's time for a quick break for a word about MANSCAPED. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions you can actually keep. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust MANSCAPED. Use our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Lepore, these products are the best.
They are the best, Anthony Bruno. And you mentioned New Year's resolutions. People throw things out there like, I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to exercise this year. Let's be honest, look in the mirror. You're not going to do those things. So why not set something realistic like keeping your balls clean? And there's no better way to do it than with the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped.
You nailed it, Lepore. Resolutions you can actually keep. You have the Lawnmower 4.0, the body wash and shampoo. They will keep you nice and clean, smelling good, and there's nothing better than that. So once again, everybody, go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20. You will get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. Now let's move on to the second game of the week.
Oh, do we have
the Toronto Maple Leafs? I already mentioned it earlier in the show. It was just hilarious. I'm sorry, at this point, there's no use getting mad. When you outshoot the Arizona Coyotes 46-18 and a dude named Karel Vejmelka is standing on his head and having the greatest performance of his career, all you can do is laugh. If you can't laugh at that, then I'm sorry, you're going to have a tough time being a Leaf fan, being a fan of any team, because the Leafs completely dominated that team. Arizona, Lepore, touched the puck twice all game and both times scored.
Dude, think of it. The biggest stat that jumped out to me, it was about midway through the third. The shots were 38-12. You're going on more than 3 times as many shots on goal.
Insane.
That can't happen very often in the National Hockey League, I'm sure, that deep into the game, midway through the third period. Just horrible. And I'll say it, that Coyotes team, and it's hilarious and ironic that the Leafs lost, that may be the worst team I've ever seen.
They're an egregious team.
I really and truly feel that way, because in the cap era, I often say, if you look down lineups, I mean, most teams have guys who are dangerous. They have guys who can kill you. Even the bad teams, the bottom, they have a few guys. They have a great game. You can lose. I mean, Arizona's got Kessel for whatever that's worth now. After that, I mean, like, Dzingel scored the 2 goals, but no one's afraid of Dzingel.
Keller, he's solid,
Keller's
but he's
decent.
not.
Yeah, but
great.
Again, like, these names, it's nothing to scare you. And just watching this game, it was repeatedly the Leafs entering the zone, firing it around. 5-on-5 felt like they were on the power play. And if Arizona got possession, there was zero creativity. They would just kind of clip it up the boards and hope they get it out.
That team,
and then the Leafs would do it again. It was a joke. Like, it was a bad game to watch. They were that bad. And again, hilarious that the Leafs found a way to lose. But
they were an AHL team, essentially. Like, Lepore, halfway through the game, I just realized that Andrew Ladd played for the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, me too.
I go, holy shit.
Right.
I thought Andrew Ladd retired. He's on this team. And then after the game, I checked the stats. Lepore, they played Andrew Ladd over 17 minutes in that hockey game. Andrew Ladd in the year 2022 is playing over 17 minutes a night for an NHL hockey team, and the Leafs lost to that team. It was just hilarious to me.
They threw out a stat during one of their power plays. I think they don't have a single player who has more than 2 power play goals. How's that possible?
Awful. I think I heard a stat also that they had, I think it was like 12 power play goals or 13 power play goals in like
the entire
I don't know, it was like 70 opportunities or something like that.
Nice.
I should check their power play percentage, but it's like you said, that team is just awful. And I think they are easily the worst team in the NHL. As bad as Montreal's been this year, that Coyotes team is a mess.
Yeah, they said it again. Another stat they fired out was talking about penalties and power plays. And we've joked on this show a million times about how in the NHL, it's hilarious how the penalties just seem to be quite even at the end of the game. And you look up for the season and most teams are pretty even. Arizona has committed far more penalties than they've had power plays, far more. And I think it was Ray Ferrero on the call. He made the point, they never have the puck. So it's not even like the referees have an opportunity to even out because they never, ever, ever have the puck. But anyways, all this being said, Kirill Vejmelka had the game of his life. And it was funny how these things work, eh? Early in the game, puck comes out to Matthews and you just kind of sit up. And we're at that point now as Leafs fans where you just kind of say goal. You're just waiting for that puck to hit the twine. And he was stopped. So it was like, like that weird thing of, is this going to be one of those? Because
something weird in the air tonight.
Yeah, something very weird in the air. But Matthews had his chances. He did get that goal. He was buzzing. He had a great game, I thought. Amir Tavares having a couple chances. There was that one sequence where it was Kerfoot and Nylander on the 2-on-1. Vejmelka robs Nylander because he kind of came in alone, and then the puck came loose to Matthews, and then he like slid in front of the net and caught it. Just ridiculous save. And then they had their chances in the third, but not their night. But again, right? Hockey, advanced stats. Here we were saying that the Leafs got points from Colorado. They got 3 to 4 points from Colorado and Vegas being heavily outplayed. And then what happens is they have a 48 shot night and they score 1 goal. So there was just negative regression. The Leafs were due to have a stinker in the way of shooting
they almost
percentage.
Deserved it after those previous 2 performances from the hockey 100%. Gods.
And that's the sport. I think that's often what people don't get when it comes to advanced stats and where things should go. That was a perfect example of how the Leafs, based on the metrics, underlying numbers, should have lost those 2 games, but you pay for it later. At some point, things even out, as I always say, like Jerry Seinfeld. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it wasn't one you're even mad at. I mean, it's frustrating at the time, but the Leafs were on a roll. They got that win in Vegas. You just kind of put your hands up and you're like, I mean, it would have been nice if Mrazek got a win, though. But we got to listen to more of that shit. about Mrazek, and I'll ask you that winning goal. There was some debate on Twitter. Whose fault is that? Is that Mrazek or Brody or both?
So I played D my whole life playing hockey. So I'm going to say it was TJ Brody's fault.
I thought you were going to say I played D, so I'm going to say it was Mrazek.
No, like
I thought you were going to say.
And listen, Mrazek, he came out with the stick and he could have, poked it
away.
Exactly. He could have pushed it away, but that's on TJ Brody, in my opinion. Like, you have to just have better defensive coverage on your man. And it was a great play, honestly, by the Coyotes.
Sure.
I forgot who it was that made the pass, that cross ice pass, but I thought it was a good play.
Yeah.
And
I think it was Schmaltz.
It was Schmaltz.
I think it was
And
Schmaltz.
the Leafs just came, a couple inches away from breaking that up, whether, it was Mrazek or Brody, whoever you want to blame. And unfortunately, it just went right onto the Coyotes player's stick, and he crushed the hopes and dreams of Leafs Nation.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of those ones. I'm sure a lot of people lost money. I'm sure a lot of people saw they're probably like minus 300 or something. Maybe
they were
not
tacking on the Leafs to their parlays. That was their lock.
I didn't even think about parlays. A lot of people just added the Leafs for a little bit more bonus money and lost. Or one of those ones where at minus whatever would have been minus 250, minus 300, you lay that huge bet because you're just thinking there's no way. Like, there's absolutely no way. So I'll bet 1,000 to win 300.
Yeah, like an asteroid would have to come down and hit the arena for the Leafs to lose that game against Arizona.
What's awesome, Arizona took Colorado to overtime later in the week.
That's right.
So
later that week.
Yeah. But Colorado got the 2 points, unlike the Leafs. But the Coyotes fighting, proud team, I guess.
And you know what? I will say there was a couple shifts where Phil Kessel was buzzing around, man.
Phil Kessel's awesome.
He gave me some flashbacks to 2011, where he
someone's
was
gonna pick
around
him up.
Lepore.
Someone's gonna pick him up. You know what I think Kessel's gonna be? I think it's gonna be a 3-way deal. Someone's gonna take some salary, and then there's gonna be another deal. Why not? I think there's a lot of teams who'd like to add Phil Kessel.
Yeah, he's a guy who strikes me as someone who honestly just kind of doesn't care right now because he's playing on a shitty team. Like, if you insert that guy onto an actual legitimate team with good players, and again, obviously, you think back to Pittsburgh and he was in the perfect situation. I'm not saying he has to be placed in that situation, but you put him on any playoff team and you put him in a top 6 role with better players than this Coyotes team is trotting out there every night, I think he can still do some damage.
You think he can still be a top 6 on a good team?
I think he can play in someone's top 6. And again, I'm not saying he's going to, produce it like a 70-point clip or something like that, but he can be, your 6th guy in that top 6, like the worst player in your top 6.
I'm trying to think who would be a good fit for Phil Kessel.
Like, I feel like he could do worse than Phil Kessel. Let's just say that.
Well, yeah. And again, he brings the experience. I'm just, like I said about Eichel, how Vegas just works. I'm trying to think about Kessel and his style and the type of player, like what team would make that move. I can't really think of one, but I do think someone's going to pick him up. I really do. And like I said, I think it's going to be a 3-team deal where it's because he's making, I guess you'd have to take on. So the Leafs pay him is like 1.15. So then it's
1.2, I think it is something.
Yeah.
Like
so for argument's sake, we'll say, so it's 6.8. So then cut it in half to 3.4. Not bad, right? If a team's
not
willing
bad
to
at
do
all.
That. Yeah. Especially at the end of the year when it's a prorated and stuff. It's going to happen, man. And Phil Kessel will win another Stanley Cup.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Just racking up Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
While the Leafs still can't get out of the first round. When the Leafs lose to Tampa in the first round and Phil's going on to compete for another Stanley Cup. You can already see it pour.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from this game you want to get off your chest?
No, it's actually the opposite. I never want to talk about it ever again, to be honest.
Same here, Lepore.
I received a lot of texts that night, making fun of me and making fun of my Toronto Maple Leafs. It's funny how my phone always seems to be blowing up when things are going horribly for the team in blue. People I haven't talked to since high school are, texting me and reaching out. Hey, your Leafs, what's going on, man? It's like rubbing it in, right?
You got to throw those jabs, man. When the Leafs have another
Oh my
embarrassing
God.
moment,
I
all the
embrace them.
trolls come out of the woodwork, Lepore.
I am more than happy to make fun of myself as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, Anthony Bruno. So no problems there, man.
Yeah,
Take your
it
shots.
never ceases to amaze me the amount of trolls that come out when things aren't going well for the Leafs, especially when an embarrassing moment happens for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it's hilarious. If you can't laugh about this stuff, then you're just taking it too seriously. Honestly,
I was
going to
say,
feel about it.
It's sports. Have fun. Don't take it too seriously.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the final game of the week in St. Louis. Like I mentioned earlier, an absolute roller coaster of a hockey game. The Leafs blew another 3-1 lead. So they blew a 3-1 lead against Colorado, blew a 3-1 lead against Vegas, and then blew another 3-1 lead against the St. Louis Blues. And you thought, here we go again. Jack Campbell having an off night. Pucks are going in left, right, and center. You go, damn, the Leafs are going to find a way to lose this game. But it was the opposite. Austin Matthews tying the game in the third period, scoring in his franchise best 10th straight road game. He has 24 goals in his last 27 games.
Yeah.
This is insane.
One away from the record, man. One road goal away from the record for consecutive road games with a goal.
Unbelievable. The dude is just, he's just on another planet.
Yzerman and Bure have one more game.
You think he's going to do it?
Talk about against him at this point.
He's just incredible. But you know what, Lepore? You know who else has been pretty incredible? Yeah, I said the word incredible. Ilya Mikheyev.
Oh, that's incredible.
His fifth goal in 7 games since returning from injury. That dude has been scoring some big goals for this team. He ended up scoring the game-winning goal. So it was just a crazy game, Lepore. What did you think of it, man?
As far as Mikheyev goes, how much of it? I mean, he's obviously the rate he's at right now is not gonna keep going. But how much of it very well could just be that he's finally healthy and feeling good and at 100%. And again, I'm not saying I expect him to score 5 goals every 7 games, but him just being a little better. And we always make fun of his lack of finishing ability. So there was the wrist problem, and then was it his thumb this year?
Yeah, he broke his thumb.
Yeah, so little things like that, and those are annoying injuries that take some time to heal,
man. Because when you go back to his rookie year,
he looked great.
Pre-wrist injury, he was fucking really good.
I heard people were like, "We got this guy for free." Oh yeah, it was. I remember him definitely.
I mean, he was turning some heads, man. There was like a 2 to 3 week stretch before he suffered that injury, where he was really turning it on. And it's like you said, people were thinking, "Wow, the Leafs really stole a guy here. Like this is a legit top 6 player with high end speed." I even think back to last season. Remember when he beat McDavid in a straight line foot race for the puck?
How could
that video went viral on social media? And again, I mean, Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid. It's one little race to the puck. But people were like, "Oh my God, I knew Ilya Mikheyev was fast, but I didn't think he was that fast." And now I think you make a good point. I think he's finally feeling good again. And it's like you said, he's not going to score at he's scoring at a 58 goal pace right now over 82 games. Like it's absurd. That's not gonna keep going. But if he can score some timely goals playing in the bottom 6 and then move up to the top 6 if the Leafs need him to, that's a weapon, man. That is an absolute weapon down the stretch and come playoff time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the journalists can't wait to write articles about how the Leafs won't be able to afford him if they want to, but we'll get to that when it happens. Something else that happened in this game, man. Timothy Liljegren, first goal in the NHL. You know what I want to say about Liljegren? And I'll even take a shot at our podcast, Bruno. I don't think Liljegren has been getting enough airtime when it comes to the kind of like the feel-good stories of the year for the Leafs. People have talked about Bunting having a great year, and Kasha and Kampf have been great additions. Every time I look on Twitter, people are going nuts over Kampf's like face-off ability, this and that. Of course, Campbell's been amazing. Rasmus Sandin, I mean, there was the injury, but he's looked great since he's been a normal guy in this lineup. Timothy Liljegren, if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm not saying I was 100% in the direction that he wasn't going to be a regular NHLer, but I was there, man. I was almost there. I was at 80, 90%. Like, I will be surprised now if this guy ends up being a regular in the NHL. And he's looked good. I mean, nothing dominant or mind blowing, but he's looked good. So it's nice to see the Leafs develop some talent on the blue line. And it was great to see him score his first NHL goal. The kid deserved it.
I couldn't agree more. I think he's looked really solid this year. We might have to roll the tape back because I can't remember how many podcasts ago this was where we were talking about the most surprising and disappointing players on the team.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I had Timothy Liljegren as one of my most surprising players.
Humble brag
he's
for
looked
Anthony
good.
Bruno.
What's that?
I said humble brag for Anthony Bruno.
A little humble brag there.
It's all right. It's all right.
Listen, I always notice little things when it comes to defensemen. I don't know if it's because I'm a defense nerd and that's the position I played. You know, it's not like I played in the NHL or anything, but I know a thing or two about playing some defense. And man, Timothy Liljegren, that dude has looked really solid. One of the best things about Liljegren is that a lot of times you don't notice him, which is a good thing when you're a defenseman. It's kind of like the TJ Brody thing.
Yeah.
Where he's just there. He makes the right play. He's very efficient. He's not going to produce crazy numbers offensively, but he's just going to do his job and not make any stupid mistakes.
Yeah. And I would say that he was exactly the opposite in past years where you would notice him all the time because the term I use for him is that he was too raw. Like, you could see that he was an amazing athlete, but he was just trying too hard. Things were happening too fast for him. Sometimes it'd work out and be fine, but like, to your point, you'd notice him. Whereas now it's subtle. And I guess that just comes with age, maturity, confidence, circle whatever you want. But add it to the list, man. Under talked about storyline for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, the success of Timothy Liljegren. I really think so.
Yeah. Shout out Liljegren. First career NHL goal against the St. Louis Blues. That was amazing to see. But Lepore, what else impressed you from the Leafs in this hockey game?
I got to say, I thought they were dead. I really and truly thought they were dead when the Blues mounted that comeback. But as you referred to earlier, when you need a hero, you call on Austin Matthews, and he tied the game. And Mikheyev, and things are going well for you when you score a goal like that for the winner on the road. And what was hilarious was that if you watch the replay, Mikheyev fired it on net and it was in. And he went to the front of the net kind of naturally, as you do as a player. So he fires it on, goes in the direction of the puck, goes to the net. And then I see Leafs players jumping around celebrating. And even him, he was kind of like, what's going on? And then you see the referee pointing. But I thought they were dead and buried, man. Like that was a big win. In a season where the Leafs are winning a lot of games, sometimes more dramatic ones or more character wins don't get the attention they deserve. The Leafs showed some character, man. I mean, they got out to a lead. That lead evaporated. St. Louis had all the momentum playing at home, and the Leafs stepped up, man. And their big guys stepped up, and their depth guys stepped up. And it's nice to see. I'll definitely say this: how many games has Jack Campbell won for this team this season? It was awesome to see the team win a game for Jack Campbell when he wasn't in his best.
Because it's happened too many times this year where he's had to stand on his head. I mean, it's happened countless times this year. And it's not like the Leafs, were screwed if they didn't have Jack Campbell in some of those games. But, this guy was on a stretch where he was putting up like a 940 save percentage. Yeah. His save percentage right now is down to 931. But man, he was just lights out all season. And the last little bit, he's been a little bit off his game. And it's like you said, man, big character win. They score 6 goals in a night where Jack Campbell was obviously totally out of sync. And that Mikheyev goal reminded me of the Patrick Kane goal to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, kind of.
Against the Flyers. Yeah. Remember, no one knew the puck was in.
Yeah.
The only thing is that Kane was the one celebrating, whereas Mikheyev had no idea that he had scored. And then you just see the ref going, no, it's a good goal. It's a good goal. So it was nice to see a bounce finally go Toronto's way. And, we mentioned this in the Vegas game. I mean, the Colorado game they blew, but there was a couple instances this past week in particular where things went the Leafs' way for once. So that was good to see. And how about Mitch Marner, Lepore? Comes back. He was in COVID protocol and he looked really good.
Yeah, scored that snipe and then set up the Matthews goal. Looked good.
Great. Yeah, that was a great goal. And then obviously the pass that he made to Matthews for the game tying goal, unreal vision. It's nice to see those guys reunited again, because there have been some times this season when Marner's been out of the lineup and some of the other injuries and things where Matthews is he's almost been on an island at times. And it doesn't matter because it's Austin Matthews and he finds a way. What I've been really impressed with is the chemistry between Matthews and Bunting, how that's developed throughout the season. Because I remember when they first started playing together with Marner, they were just not on the same page. Like Bunting and Matthews and Marner, it was just like, I want this to work, but the timing's not there. It's like Bunting almost just wasn't good enough to play with them. But as the season has gone on, Bunting has been a really nice fit. And even saw it on that face-off goal where Matthews wins the face-off. He shoots it forward. The rebound off Binnington goes right to Bunting and he puts it in. And even Ryan O'Reilly said after the game, he's like, man, that was a sick play by Matthews. Like he pulled a fast one on me, shooting the puck off the face-off. And Bunting was right there, obviously, because they were on the same page. He knew Matthews was going to shoot it off the draw, and he ended up scoring the goal. So it was nice to see the offense, like you said, Lepore, finally dominate and win a game for Jack Campbell.
Yeah, true, man. And kind of what I said before about how, I mean, I guess it depends which way you want to look at it, but we had the two games that we probably should have lost and got points out of. The game we should have won against Phoenix that we didn't. And now this game where it's not a matter, I'm not going to go into whether they should have won or not. Their numbers were good. Their underlying numbers were very good, but to score 6 goals, again, hockey, it evens out. They scored 1 the game before on 48 shots. So a more normal number is going to be generated collectively another night. So that's what it was, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it was just kind of a weird game because you mentioned this earlier in the show, how St. Louis doesn't usually play games like this. They're like a tight defensive team. They play low event hockey. They had 5 guys out of the lineup. All these guys had COVID. Tarasenko, Perron, Braden Shen, Buchnevich, and Colton Parayko. So they were missing 5 very important
their best players. Yeah, seriously.
Like those are 5 legit players on that team. Most of those guys are part of the Blues core. So you would like to see the Leafs handle St. Louis a little bit easier than that, considering that those guys were out of the lineup. But again, it was just a wild game. And it was nice to see the Leafs show some character, come back, and grab the 2 points. Is there anything else from this game, Lepore, you want to get off your chest?
No, wrap up the week. 2 wins and a loss. I'm okay with it against those teams. So let's move on, Anthony Bruno.
Love it, man. It is now time to talk about our beloved Edmonton Oilers.
The weekly segment.
We just talked about them last week and we went on like a 20-minute rant. If you want to check that out, you should, because it was actually very entertaining.
Yeah, comment down below what you thought.
Our own tires, but I thought it was good. But the Oilers, they found a way to get on our podcast once again because they were beating the Ottawa Senators. I believe it was 3-1 on Hockey Night in Canada in the late game. The Ottawa Senators, Lepore, scored 5 goals in the third period. And after the game, after the Oilers lost again, 6-4, dropping to 2-10-2 over their last 14 games with a -21 goal differential, Connor McDavid was at the podium at Rogers Place, and he looked absolutely devastated. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but that podium in Edmonton. It's like this team has no answers. And Connor McDavid specifically said that in the press conference. You know, it's almost like this guy is just, he has no idea what's happening. This team can't figure it out. They're losing to bad teams. They're on a complete nosedive right now. And the big news that has dropped over this past week is that the Oilers have been in touch with Evander Kane's agent. And it seems like Evander Kane is close to signing a contract with the Edmonton Oilers. So there's a lot going on here, Lepore. This team is a disaster right now. You have this Evander Kane situation going on. How do you see this all playing out in Edmonton?
Why hasn't it happened yet? I'll ask that, because the way Kenny was talking about it, it seemed like it was a done deal. And then it comes up with McDavid. And based on how he presented his answer, it seemed like he had been told that, yeah, it's most likely going to happen. So I just don't know why it hasn't happened yet. It could be like a contract thing. Who knows, like a union thing. But this move, typically, I would circle and say, why would you do that? Why would you take a risk on a player who's had his issues with teammates off the ice? Why would you want to bring that drama in the room? The New Zealand All Blacks rugby team, they have a saying, and the saying is no assholes. No assholes allowed, because they know it can really fuck things up. So a player like Evander Kane that has been known to bring drama, been known to bring extra attention, and even that aspect of it where once he joins the team, it's going to be the first question for a lot of guys in the locker room at practice after games. Tell us what you think about this Evander Kane edition. It's just, again, a distraction. However, you acknowledge the tailspin this Oilers team is on right now. And I said on our pod last week that the Oilers have to do something. They have to make a move. They have to do something to try to spark this team into getting into the right direction. Now, I don't know if Evander Kane is the answer, but he's a good hockey player. He can put up points. So it might be the answer. Or based on how things are going for the Oilers right now, to me, it's worth a shot. It really is. And I'll say that at this point, the way your season is going as of late, what do you have to lose? Nothing really. I mean, you're tail spinning anyway. So if you can add a skilled player and hopefully he can stay well behaved, do it. If I'm Edmonton, I pull the trigger on that deal. I do it.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. That's where we are right now with the Edmonton Oilers. Just looking at the wild card race at the time of recording this podcast, they are sitting 4 points out of a playoff spot right now. Now, they do have games in hand. San Jose currently holds down the second wild card spot in the West. The Oilers have 4 games in hand on them. But this team, they're desperate at this point. Ken Holland sees it. Everything is coming crumbling down around McDavid and Draisaitl. As good as they were at the beginning of the season, as dominant as the offense was, as the power play was, everything is going in the opposite direction right now. And if you can give this team a jolt in the arm, even signing a guy that has shown off the ice he's a complete idiot and makes terrible decisions, if it takes signing someone like that, who, as we all know, like you said, Lepore, he's a great hockey player. Just thinking about this from a pure hockey perspective, Evander Kane would be an excellent fit from a hockey perspective on all 32 teams in the NHL.
He makes you better. Like black and white, he makes you better.
He can play in anyone's top 6. He just led the San Jose Sharks in scoring last season. This is a guy who can put up 30 goals. He plays a physical brand of hockey. He plays the perfect playoff style of hockey that you want, specifically out of your best players. Like, this is a dude that isn't afraid of anyone on the ice. So playing alongside Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, that would be an incredible fit. And at this point, I agree with you, man. I think the Oilers almost don't have a choice, because can you imagine if they miss the playoffs this season? Like, just the level of embarrassment. I can't even imagine how brutal that would be if they actually miss the playoffs. We talked about this on last week's show, but you have 2 players in their primes at the peak of their powers in McDavid and Draisaitl in a pretty weak Western Conference, in a pretty weak division. Pacific division at least. And this team is on the verge of missing the playoffs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go there. And I'll say that as a neutral hockey fan. Like, I want to see McDavid in the playoffs. I really do. So
yeah, it's like, who doesn't want to see McDavid in the playoffs? I want to see the most electric player in the sport competing for the Stanley Cup. It's as simple as that. So if it takes going out and signing Evander Kane, to try to turn this thing around, even though it could backfire completely. I think at this point, man, it's worth the risk. Simple as that.
And it'll give guys like us something to talk about.
Content.
Because good news, bad news, whatever happens with Evander Kane coming to the Edmonton Oilers, it'll be great conversation. So as hockey fans, you want to be entertained. Come on, Edmonton. Let's wake up tomorrow that you've signed Evander Kane.
Lepore, if you were the Leafs, would you consider signing Evander Kane?
No, this is my pause, my long pause. No, I don't think I would. I mean, I assume it'd be like league min, but why? I mean, for us, do you think it's not what we need?
The Leafs aren't as desperate.
Yeah, it's not even like the desperate. I'm saying just from the pure hockey standpoint. And I think too, even it just being Toronto, like I mentioned how like guys having to answer the question in the locker room and just added attention. If something does happen, it could fall apart for any team. It could really fall apart for Toronto if things don't go well or if there's some sort of drama. So if I was the Leafs, I would avoid it. I would. What do you think? Would you give Evander Kane a shot with the blue and white?
Well, I just said a minute ago that he would be an incredible fit on all 32 teams. And
but hockey-wise,
stand by that. But I think at this point, based on where the Leafs are, they're comfortably in a playoff spot. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. They're already a really good offensive team. And as much as I think Evander Kane would help this team, I don't think it's worth the risk for them. And I don't think it's worth the risk for some of the other teams, like, for example, like Florida, right? Or even Tampa for that matter, right? And I mean, again, you could make the case that, he would make any team better. You immediately slot him into your top six. He can play on the power play. But I think at this point, from a Leafs perspective and how they're currently built, and again, we don't know the inner workings of the dressing room and the leadership group and how strong that is with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but where they are right now, I don't think it's worth the risk bringing in a guy like that with that much baggage who could cause problems in, the media mecca of the hockey world. That could be a very explosive situation if you bring in Evander Kane.
You know what? No, let's play a little game here. I'll throw out a team and you say whether you think it'd be a good idea to add Evander Kane. Okay.
Let's do it.
Colorado.
No.
Really?
Because again, I think it's the same thing with the Leafs, right? I mean, I think we both agree they're the best team in the NHL.
Yeah.
Colorado.
But I think because of that, and like I'm trying to get inside people's heads here, but I think because Colorado is so good, I'm not saying for sure this would happen, but if there's any team or any sort of situation where he'd stay in check and all the right things would be done, and it's not the most media driven market, it might be there, or a team like that. Like, I hate to say like, I think he'd behave there, but I just kind of think that he would do his best. Like at the end of the day, he'd know his opportunity. I think he'd be crazy not to be aware of the opportunity he's been given. So it may work out. So that's why I threw Colorado out there. How about say so? Say like a Florida, a Carolina, those teams, you'd say no, don't do it.
You know what? If you want to play the media angle and say, it'd be better if he joined a team that doesn't have a large media presence, he can kind of fly under the radar, then maybe joining one of the Florida teams isn't a bad idea. But again,
if he joins Tampa, oh my God,
then I'm going to cry.
Oh, because that will be everything that I just said. That team will keep him in check and he'll be totally aware of his opportunity and everything will go well.
Oh yeah.
100%.
If there's a team that has the leadership group, it's Tampa, a team that's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. Everyone knows their roles. John Cooper keeps everybody in check. The players have a ton of respect for him. Yeah, I don't think Evander Kane would stroll into that situation and blow it all up. So that could be a team that could handle a guy like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas maybe Florida, who, as much as everyone's talking about how great Florida is, they haven't done shit. They haven't won a playoff series in 25 years. They're in the same boat as the Leafs. So that's a team that's taking a risk as well. And again, we do not know the inner workings of all these leadership groups around the NHL. I'm not going to sit here and say the Florida Panthers have the strongest leadership group with Barkov and Huberdeau, and I don't know what's going on in that dressing room. But from an outside perspective, just bringing in a guy, again, with that much baggage that could be that explosive and screw up the chemistry of your team. I just think if you're a good team and you're a team that's sitting comfortably, in a top 5 to 7 spot in the league right now, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Okay. It's fair enough. But again, we hope it does happen because we hope there's something to talk about. Come on, Edmonton.
Especially Edmonton.
Yeah.
Come on. Evander Kane's not an idiot. He knows that playing with Connor McDavid would be the best thing possible for him to rehabilitate his image, to have another big season, even though it's only going to be half a season because he's missed the first 35, 40 games. But can you imagine this dude plays 40 games with Connor McDavid and puts up, 55 points
in 40 games?
I mean,
well,
it's possible. Bruno. He's never played with a player that good.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm just saying,
I'll put it this way.
Let's say that's like the best case scenario. But if let's say he puts up a point a game, scores 20 goals in 40 games.
I was gonna say even like 35 points in 40 games. That's great. Like that could lead to him getting another shot elsewhere next year.
Exactly. And so that's why I think I would almost, I don't want to guarantee it, but he's probably been in touch with Connor McDavid. I mean, you would assume that they've been communicating. He's probably been communicating with some of the guys that he knows around the league. There's got to be guys that are secretly trying to recruit him.
Yeah, to be fair, right? To be fair, and I always say this or assume this, I'm sure once that idea popped up in Edmonton Oilers management, it's run by McDavid.
100%.
So to that point, yeah, McDavid, if it happens, McDavid wants it to happen. If he didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen. I assume he's that kind of authority with the Edmonton Oilers.
And it's like you said, Lepore, based on the way he answered that question at the press conference, the thing that he was getting ripped on social media for, how they're like, oh, McDavid doesn't care about, Evander Kane and the terrible things that he's done, and he just cares about hockey. The way that McDavid answered that question tells me that he's been talking to Ken Holland and probably Evander Kane himself, and that it's almost a done deal.
Yeah.
That dude is signing with the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, he got right into the defensive mode. So, yeah.
Yeah, something's brewing. And who knows, maybe by the time we release this podcast, Evander Kane is going to be signed on one of the 32 teams in the National Hockey League. But we will see what happens. It's like you said, man, we're just hoping for some fireworks.
Come on, Edmonton. Come on.
Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
I think I'm good, Bruno. We did it. We made it through another one. As hard as it was to dig up a Toronto Maple Leaf player that wore the number 48, I was able to do it. So let's put a bow on it, man. Let's wrap it up.
Sounds good, man. So the Leafs continue their road trip on Wednesday night against the New York Rangers, and then they play the New York Islanders on Saturday night. So a couple games to wrap up the road trip, just a 2-game slate for the Leafs next week. And hopefully they don't have the roller coaster week that they just had. But if they do have a roller coaster week, we'll hope that they can get as many points as possible, because this Atlantic division looks like an absolute buzzsaw right now.
Yeah, you're not making up any ground with winning streaks. Nothing's changing.
And how you mentioned that Boston is now on a roll. It's just going to be a disaster. The two teams that finished second and third in this division and have to play each other in the first round, that's just going to be the most brutal thing in the National Hockey League. Because right now, you look at the standings, the overall league standings, based on points percentage, Florida's number 1, Tampa's number 4, and the Leafs are number 5. So you have 3 of the top 5 teams in the NHL in the same division.
Based on the wild card right now. So does Boston have the first wild card?
Boston has the second wild card spot behind Pittsburgh.
Okay, Pittsburgh. So you may still end up getting the top seed. Because I was going to say it might be one of those situations where you're better off coming fourth in the division and you get someone on the opposite, and you're still going to get a good team. But you know what I'm saying? Like you're avoiding.
Yeah, you try to avoid the Atlantic Division bracket.
Yeah. So, like, for example, like if you're Boston, you avoid Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay.
That's probably the play. I'd rather take my chances with the Metro Division, as good as some of those teams are as well.
Yeah.
But man, I want nothing to do with Tampa. And then the Florida and the Leafs, like if something clicks for either of those teams, either of them could go win a Stanley Cup if something clicks.
Would you rather play Florida or Pittsburgh?
That's tough. I'd rather play Pittsburgh, I think.
Washington.
Oh my God, that's so tough.
See, it doesn't even matter.
It almost, yeah, they're all just so good. I'm worried about this Panthers offense and slowing them down. I think the one thing about playing a team like Florida is that defensively, they're not very, very good compared to some of the other teams, some of the other elite teams. Like right now, I'll go look at the Panthers' defensive numbers real quick. They are 14th in the NHL in terms of goals against per game right now.
Okay.
So this is a team that's obviously, scoring over 4 goals a game. They just scored 9 goals the other night, but defensively, they're a little bit, I don't want to say they're weak, but they're not very good.
Yeah. To me, I don't know, man. I wouldn't, you try your best. I always say it's funny with hockey when you see a certain team, and we were supposed to wrap this up, and here we go. But in hockey, it's funny. You see certain teams that have had certain cultures, and sometimes your mind naturally goes that way based on the history of that team, even if that team still doesn't play that way. For example, like Boston and Philadelphia, you naturally always think, oh, they're tough. And their current raw, I'm not saying they're not, but they may not be. Or roster that you think, oh, that team's soft because they have always been kind of soft. Well, no, maybe now. Like if you look at their lineup, they're not. There is part of me, and I'm trying to do my best to not go that way when it comes to Florida, whereas Florida just wouldn't be an intimidating team to play in the playoffs. But I think I'd take Florida. And the reason for that is I hate to be the guy to say experience matters and like push those narratives, but I think there is something in the National Hockey League about teams being battle tested. Teams that have been through wars before, have lost wars.
That's a real thing, man.
Yeah. You go back to Washington winning the cup, the Blues finally winning the cup. It was hard, man. Like the road.
San Jose getting to the cup final.
Oh, all those years. So, but then it does seem to get to a point where the team where it's like, yeah, they're battle tested. Tampa Bay. Same thing. It was hard for them. All those years of disappointment, like being among the best teams in the league. But it got to a point where they were ready. And I'm not saying Florida's not ready, but Tampa's ready. No one's going to question Tampa if you get them. Pittsburgh and Washington have won before. Would you want Boston? Like just for like the headache? Would you want the added stress that it's the Bruins? Oh my God.
No, I don't think any Leaf fan wants to see the Bruins.
No,
just avoid them. Even though I think the Leafs are a better team.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
When you face Boston in the playoffs, it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you about the Panthers, man. That's a really good point. Again, they haven't won a playoff series in 25 years. They are not battle tested. They're like the Leafs. They haven't proven shit. So
are the Leafs battle tested after all these losses?
You could say the Leafs are more battle tested than the Panthers. They've gone through more heartbreak than this current Panthers core. I think you could absolutely say that.
Well, they've gone through more heartbreak than most teams, Anthony Bruno, if not all teams.
Leafs have gone through more heartbreak in the last 5 years than like the other 31 teams combined in their histories.
That'd be a great title for a Maple Leafs podcast. Heartbreak.
The
Heartbreak Show.
City. Year after year.
Awesome.
All right, man.
So on a depressing note, let's end the podcast.
Let's end it there. And believe me, we're going to get into all the playoff scenarios and have a lot of playoff conversations leading up to the postseason and, thinking about who the Leafs are going to be matched up against and some of the other matchups around the league. And I can't wait to do that. But for now, we're not going to throw any bad vibes out into the universe. That is going to do it for episode 48 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you like the show, then we would really appreciate it if you hammer the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.